I've put so much work into these anti-vegan videos, just trying to promote health and stop this movement which is killing people, making them sick. What I want to ask for are donations, essentially. I somehow gotta get money now.
I make videos about eating raw meat, the natural human diet. I make anti-vegan videos because plant-based diets are the #1 reason why human health has been destroyed.
$602 per month.
Most of you know that I don't get any money from YouTube. I've never got 1 cent from YouTube because they disabled the AdSense 10 years ago when I made the account, and they don't answer my emails, nothing, because they hate my channel. It's obvious. YouTube is all about veganism. And of course this is all very unstable anyway, because my YouTube account could get banned anytime. A lot of you asked me over the last years, months, where I get money and how I afford the raw meat and everything. And the thing is that I had a girlfriend who I split up with now, whose parents are millionaires, and they gave me 500 euros at least every month, usually more. So I never had to think about money, and I would never make a video like this, and I actually can't stand videos like this when people make them, but I'm in a situation where I gotta do it. I pretty much can't afford this diet anymore because I don't get the money anymore, because I met somebody else and I chose her over everything else, and I was actually gonna move to the Canary Islands. I had already planned it out because the parents were gonna pay for it, so financially I was all set, and I gave it all up for somebody else, and now
because plant-based diets are the #1 reason why human health has been destroyed.
$602 per month.
The thought that will have been running through many of your minds is this: what were his girlfriend's parents thinking when they decided to become donors and patrons supporting this particular cause? His bizarre political / nutritional movement to destroy veganism. Were they themselves true believers in what he was preaching? Did they just sort of tolerate it? Did they think, well, our daughter loves this guy, so even if he's a little bit crazy or if this is a waste of time and money, we'll support this undertaking? It's just interesting to imagine who those people must have been or how they must have felt about their daughter and their money being devoted to supporting this particular cause. But for me, watching this, I'm also self-critical and looking at the parallelisms. You know, I have to think about how my girlfriend's parents, right now in real life, how they regard me and my pursuit of my equally incomprehensible political cause, right? Because I know my girlfriend's parents regarded veganism as a cult. When I first got involved with my girlfriend, her parents denounced me as a cult leader. Her parents and at least one of her brothers, I forget if it was both, wrote denouncing me in the harshest terms possible, comparing me to Jim Jones and Jonestown, and really seriously saying that veganism was a dangerous cult that she was being drawn deeper and deeper into. And to be honest with you, that creates a rift between me and them that's never going to be bridged. It's never going to be okay. We're never going to be cool with each other. Me and her parents, me and her brothers. I mean, it's been a year and a half now. It's not getting better. It's also not getting worse. But there's a very real sense in which they don't support anything I'm doing or ever would be doing. Like, you know, in terms of veganism or my career or activism or this YouTube channel, obviously. But they also don't support my aspirations, just even in baking. Baking bread, baking cakes, vegan cuisine. They have zero sympathy for that and zero support for that. So that's not something that's going to go away. And I know it, and my girlfriend knows it. Again, you can just imagine. Again, I don't have to imagine an alternate reality in which I have a girlfriend who is a millionaire, as this guy claims his ex-girlfriend was. I could just have an ex-girlfriend who was middle class or even poor, but whose parents actively supported this, actively wanted to see. You can imagine, I could have a girlfriend and their parents are poor, but they sincerely sympathize with and support veganism. You know, again, I might have had a girlfriend whose parents were poor but sincerely supported Buddhism in that earlier period of my life. And that would change everything. For better, maybe for worse. And again, looking back at my life, what if I had stayed on one of those paths because I had more support to do so? I wouldn't be in this situation I'm in now, for better and for worse. Now, I admit, all of the causes I've been involved in, political, ethical, ecological, the ecological causes also, linguistic, all of them are of more self-evident value than the particular cause of promoting, meat eating and trying to debunk veganism this guy's on. But nevertheless, you have to admit, from an outsider's perspective, from the perspective of unsympathetic and incomprehending parents, or your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, however you want to put it, there's a kind of parallelism here that for me is striking and worth reflecting on and worth exploring in my own life, past, present, and future. Most of you guys probably know this about me. Regular viewers would know this about me, but they've probably never thought it through explicitly. Now, I used to be a scholar researching Buddhism. Now, I didn't just do the language and the religion. I also did history and politics, subjects like slavery that Buddhist monks don't want to talk about, like the history of slavery within Buddhism, history of imperialism and anti-imperialism, so political stuff, but I also did the hard work of learning the ancient language the scriptures are written in. Now, think about how different my whole life would be if I had been born with parents who supported that kind of scholarship. Think about how different my entire life would be if I'd met a wealthy girlfriend whose parents supported that kind of scholarship. You know what? Take the word wealthy out of the equation. Like, let's just say I met a middle-class Chinese girl, just a family that wasn't poor. Because, the amount of money it takes to support scholarship of that kind is really nothing. This guy was saying he was living on maybe 500 euros a month. But even including making trips to visit, archaeological sites with ancient stone inscriptions or manuscriptoria and archives, it was very, very cheap. I know exactly how cheap it was to be that kind of Buddhist scholar because I did it with no support from my parents and with no support from any girlfriend or girlfriend's parents. In fact, during that whole time of my life, I literally never owned a credit card. I never owned a credit card, and I never owned a mobile phone during that period of my life. I lived a very, very cheap existence, and I paid my own way. You guys will have gathered my relationship with my parents was very negative, and I had a period of 10 years where we were not on speaking terms at all. And, it's true. If I used to say this to them, I said, look, I remember I said this directly to them in these words. I said, look, if I step on a landmine, if I accidentally injure myself, I will reach out to you. I will call you for help. But that's about what it'll take. If it's not something as serious as me stepping on a landline, like don't expect to hear from me. And what can I tell you? I was lucky. But obviously, my whole life would be profoundly different and would have been different going through these different phases if either my parents or my girlfriend's parents had supported that. No, I could say the same about the period of my life where I was more interested in humanitarian work, where I was more interested in the publishing industry. Publishing nonfiction and nonprofit and humanitarian stuff. Wasn't interested in the for-profit pulp fiction industry or something. I wasn't interested in the side of the publishing industry where money can be made. If I'd had parents or girlfriend's parents, who supported that. And again, you can imagine the long-term effects might have been very negative. If I had, it's easy to imagine. What if I'd had a girlfriend whose parents were wealthy and really supported the direction I took on when I was passionate about First Nations peoples and First Nations languages? So that means languages like Cree, Ojibwe, Mohawk, Inuit, languages that are native to, indigenous to Canada and the United States. And I was interested, again, in politics and history, not just linguistics or not just, not just culture or something, but, education and languages. Obviously, that would have taken my whole life, in a very different direction again. So, whether you think of these things with humility or with egoism, some people will just see this. And again, this really is part of the asymmetrical gender binary in Western culture. In a recent video talking about Kal-El, I drew attention to the fact that many of the things about this woman, Kal-El, many things about her would be judged very harshly if they were true of a man, in terms of how she lives her life, the choices she's made, given the opportunities that she's had, what she's done with her life. This would be judged as evil for a man to do. But, for a woman to do the same things in our culture at this time, it's sort of grudgingly accepted. I mean, it's not quite normal, but it's certainly not condemned as evil. And, by the same token, the story that this anti-vegan activist is telling, I think that would be accepted as normal or inevitable if it were a young woman telling the same story. And yet it's somehow still jarring and disconcerting, for a young man. Any serious relationship is going to involve money, even if it doesn't involve kids, doesn't involve owning a home. Any relationship of any depth or durability is going to involve money. And it's of no benefit to anyone to be dishonest with yourself or others about what your socioeconomic expectations are, what your socioeconomic aspirations are, and what your socioeconomic limitations are. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest with the people you're dating, the people you're sleeping with, the people you're getting married to, whatever it may be. And in this case, in this surreal scenario, I can commend this guy for his honesty. I want to be clear that when I criticized Kal-El in the earlier video, it's not really that she openly aspires to marry a wealthy man that I despise. It's not that she wants a man who will buy her a house, buy her a home and provide her with a certain quality of life that I despise. That in itself, in absolute isolation, I think is not so despicable. The problem really is the indirect knock-on effect on your aspirations here and now. Very, very few people have the self-discipline to pursue meaningful aspirations. I mean, whether that's learning Chinese or reading Aristotle or doing some kind of research or charity work, something positive to improve who you are as a person, to make the world a better place. Very few people have the self-discipline to pursue those positive aspirations when they don't have a job forcing them to do it or a very clear career path tied to doing it. When they don't have someone like a professor or even a military instructor standing over them, cross-examining them, forcing them to do it. And the problem is exactly that with someone like Kal-El, or many people like Kal-El, once they get it into their minds that this is in effect their career path or their destiny, perhaps, then the sense of responsibility for being all you can be, for developing yourself intellectually, morally. And again, not all ambitions have to do with money. Not all ambitions have to do with career. But the discipline of really pursuing your own ambitions for yourself, for others, to make the world a better place in general, where that is eroded because of the presumption that your purpose in life is merely to enchant and ensnare someone who's going to take care of you. Now, there's nothing inevitable about these two things. There's no reason why one will inexorably lead to or be linked to the other. But you do not have to be a student of human nature for very long to see that for both men and women, this is a trap that so many of us can fall into. And the opposite character type really is Melissa's character type. So my current girlfriend, Melissa, she's very much the opposite. When she doesn't have to work, when she doesn't have a job, when she doesn't have a deadline, she's restless, she's antsy, she's uncomfortable, she's got to be doing something worthwhile. And, she demands to know from me and from the world around her. She's like, okay, what should I be working on now? And she can come up with that answer herself. If I wasn't here, she would come up with something. But it's great that in a collaborative way, she can sit down and talk to me and say, okay, should she be studying Chinese? Should she be learning French? Should she be reading Aristotle? Should she be spending her time just focusing on baking or dealing with other economic and pragmatic elements of the life we have that's unfolding? But in our culture, that's not regarded positively. To be an antsy character, to be a restless character, to be someone who wants to be someone who can't just settle down and enjoy the lassitude that this life affords them, that's regarded very negatively. But actually, I think it's a tremendously positive instinct. It's an instinct that will lead you down the road to a meaningful life and will lead you down the road away from a meaningless death.
À-bas-le-ciel.